Alright guys, I'm back here at Wilde Arrow Archery with Jeremiah, and we're going to put on my sight today and show you guys how that's done. I special ordered this black gold Ascent Verdict custom Wilde Arrow edition.
The Wilde Arrow edition. Just what it does is give you some micro adjustability in the pins, so it's a lot easier to fine tune. Their original Verdict base here, so this is still going to give you the ability to be able to slide out, shoot those longer distances. But what we're really customizing is really the head here, and this is what they call their backdraft head. So what this gives you is micro adjustability on your pins. Their standard one doesn't give you that. So I just like this because when you go out to sight your pins in, sometimes when you loosen those, slide them up and down the track, it's really hard. You get out to like 50 yards, you're hitting a little higher, a little low, and I swear I'm always chasing that back and forth. So what we decided to do is just start stocking these ones with the micro adjust, and so when you get out to distance, and if your pin's just off just a little bit, it's just way easier.
Quick
micro
movement.
Adjust. It's,
check awesome. That out, guys. You see the little dials there? You'll move them, dial them, and then set them with the Allen wrench, looks like. So that's going to be pretty slick.
On these sights, there's actually 3 different positions you can actually mount it onto your riser with. I always prefer to use the one that's going to put my sight out there in the front of my bow for a couple of reasons. One, the longer sight picture is slightly more accurate, but 2, it makes the pins appear a little bit smaller on the target. So instead of, you'll see some guys order like a 10,000ths pin. I don't like those, I can't see them. So when I put my sight the farthest out there, my pins, even though they're 19,000ths, I can see them really well, but because they're farther in front of my eye, they appear a lot smaller on the target, just easier to see. So we'll go ahead and put that out in the farthest position against your riser. Now from there, we're gonna go ahead and make sure the bow's leveled in the vise, and then we're gonna set your first and second axis there. All right, so here what I'm doing is I'm just verifying, making sure the bow is actually perfectly leveled in the vise using our van handle level. The other way you can do that, you'll see some guys take like a carpenter level and try to run it off their pockets or their axles will get them pretty close. But what we're going to do here is verify that they're what they call the first axis. So on a good quality sight, they should have 3 axis adjustments, what they call first, second, and third axis. What we're going to do right now is just verify that the first axis is set correctly. And if you look at this level up here that I've installed on the sight, that is a level from Hampski Archery. We use those all the time to verify the axis on our bows to make sure that they're perfectly set. So you can see it's really close, but that bubble is just barely leaning towards that right edge. So what I'm going to do is actually adjust the first axis to make sure that that bubble is actually dead center. Make sure that that bubble sits perfectly dead center. So that's probably why I'll leave it there. And then I'm going to go ahead and snug up these 2 screws up here on the sight to make sure they're not going to come loose while you're hunting. Just always like to double check and kind of set everything tight. That way you don't have any issues. Then what we're going to do, we're going to hook your actual scope back to the sight there. So on the scope here, if you look, the bubble is actually part of this ring here. This is going to be your second axis. So what we're going to do now is install this back on there. It doesn't really matter where it's set windage wise, so you just kind of center it up and snug it down. And what we're going to do is we're going to verify, make sure that this level's dead on. And you can look now in there that the second axis is off by quite a bit. So a lot of times what you see guys doing is they're not checking their first axis. They'll just start twisting that housing until they got that in the middle. But what ends up happening is you want your first axis and your second axis intersected at 90 degrees. Well, what might happen is their first axis might be canted, and what they do to compensate is just move their second axis. So now everything's way out of whack. So they might be good at 20, 30 yards. You get out to 40, 50, and you start hitting way left or right. You can't figure it out. It's because they haven't got the axis point set correctly on their sight. That voice would sound heavily on video there.
We got our special guest here.
Dude, the lime, green, and black.
Okay, get in there. How to build a bow. Show us how to mount a sight.
All right. So
I'm kind of stuck at this point, Jordan. Could you show me how to finish this up here?
Yeah, so here's what we're going to do here. We want to make sure what you got in the vise here. Have it nice and secure. Do we got the level? Got the level on here? Okay, so we got the level right here. Okay, so you want to get this up here. Just kind of make sure that let's see how that's
as level as possible.
Wait, let's just yep, that's level. Okay, sweet. All right, we're just gonna take a look down the barrel now. That's pretty center of center.
Yeah,
I'd say that's a good looking sight right there. Yeah, that's
eyeball level.
Yeah, well, just
years of experience. Just eyeball it in.
Yeah,
like that.
just give me a second.
Here's something that's cool though. Eric and I have been shooting the Black Gold Ascent sight for like 3 years now.
Yeah, at least.
Because of this guy. You're the one that put us onto it. And we switched to the 3-pin adjustable, and it's been a game changer. I like it a lot. You like it. He loves it.
I love it. Yeah, it's my favorite.
They're awesome. And they look pretty sweet on these bows.
That matches my bow good.
Oh, it looks so
Black
good.
and green. Now what we've done, we got everything leveled here. We're just going to set your peep sight in the string. And when guys are selecting the peep sights, there's a lot of different aperture sizes. What you want to make sure is you get the correct size. So when you look around the sight ring here at full draw, indoors, I like to have a little bit bigger gap from my peep sight to my housing, because when you go outside, especially on bright light, your pupil is going to contract. You're going to get a little bit of glare off there. So indoors, you want to see a little bit of a gap, or in dark lighting, a little bit of a gap from your peep sight to your scope. When you go outside though, you'll see that sight picture change quite a bit. So now what we want to do is make sure not only do we have the correct height to your anchor point, wherever you like to anchor, we'll get the height set correctly. And then we're going to verify that the aperture size is also correct. After we get that set, well, then we'll check third axis on the sight too.
I'm drawing back and just looking through the peep.
Yep, so don't move your head to your anchor point. Like, you want to draw back and anchor where you want, and I'll move the peep sight to fit to you. And get anchored there. Okay.
It's too high.
Too high? Okay. You can go ahead and shoot or let down, wherever you prefer to do there.
Yeah. We'll see if we got it down low enough.
Oh, yeah, a little bit of time. There you go. Yeah.
It's a touch high.
Okay.
I could make it work, but I'd rather have it
Let
down.
me just slide this down a little bit. Okay, go ahead and try that again.
That works.
Look good?
You're going to tie in the peep now.
Yep, we're going to set that. And one thing I always like to do with peep sights is, before I start to tie them in, is I'll mark them with like this whiteout pin right here. So sometimes you go to tie these, the peep sight can slide just a little bit. So we always take like a little whiteout marker, and we always mark our peep sights. That way, as I go to tie that in, if it slides up or down just a tiny bit, I know I can get it right back to the exact spot that you had it set to every time. There's a bunch of different ways to tie in a peep sight. I mean, everyone kind of has their own way. I've done it this way forever. As long as the peep sight doesn't move, I really don't care how a guy ties it in, as long as it doesn't move on you when you're shooting. So, but we're just going to start above the peep sight here. We're going to roll about 5 or 6 times. We're going to pull this snug. Pull that tight. We're going to take our tag in and pull it out of the way. So guys that tie flies, this is a pretty, a lot of guys will tie flies like this too. So just pull that down and just keep wrapping towards that peep sight.
All right, there we go. It's all tied in, finished up. That's a pretty cool looking knot.
Yeah, and then we'll just burn these tag ends off right here. Push that down. Just like so. Third axis, there's a couple different ways to do it. We always like to use to the shooter's hand at full draw, because the two main things that really affect third axis is riser flex and bow hand torque. So if you change the grip position, it can actually affect that third axis. So we're going to have them draw back now and double check that.
And use the rope, huh?
Use the rope, yep.
So this is the rope. Looks like you got an addict up there or something, huh?
Yeah. There's a couple different ways to use your sight to level third axis. One way is to actually use this Hamskea third axis level. It's called the Easy third axis level. We use this all the time, and this is a great tool, as a reference that you can use. And when you're setting third axis, you're going to actually use this post right here. You don't really care about the level at that point. Or as just kind of a quick way at home to check if you don't have one of these, is to kind of use your pins, assuming that the pins are perfectly squared within the housing there. When you draw back, you want to either keep this post or the pins perfectly centered on the rope, basically.
On the rope.
Yeah, and so what happens is when you draw back, you're going to angle your bow up. When you have either this post or the pins perfectly centered on the rope, then we're going to look at your level bubble and see if that is twisted to the left or right. And then this sight has a built-in third axis, so if it's left or right, then we're going to pivot that sight to make sure it's compensated there.
Is it typically level out of the box like that or not?
It usually is, yeah. Most of the time that this block is perfectly squared. But say, for example, when you pull your bow back, where most guys struggle with this, if they change that grip pressure by moving your wrist a little bit,
It changes
it will
everything.
move it quite a bit. Yeah. So this is where, you know, setting the third axis to the shooter's hand, I think, is the most important thing. You can put it in a vise, guys do it that way, but I've always set my third axis to my hand and how I hold my bow, just kind of how we paper tuned it before. I don't care what a machine's telling me it's doing. I care what it does when I'm shooting it. So.
And this is important, especially shooting angles.
Any angled shot is super critical. What happens if your third axis is off? When you go to shoot an angled shot, say down or uphill, you'll watch your bubble move left and right. And so what ends up happening is you'll actually cant your bow, compensating for your level, and now you're at truly canting your whole bow. And so if you're,
But it's deceiving because it looks level.
it looks level, exactly. So if for anybody that's shooting any angled shots, up or down hills, if they always seem to, you know, hit left on a downhill or right on a downhill, and it should be opposite on an uphill shot, their third axis is off, and that's what they're fighting there. So.
All right, well, I'm going to draw this back and see where we're at. All right, that's perfect right there.
Okay, so see how that bubbles up to the right?
Very to the right.
Yep, so we'll have to make a little bit of an adjustment there. This has a little locking screw. So you want to loosen this, tighten the other side, and then what you want to do is set this back in there. That way that third axis block won't come loose at all. And you only want to adjust this by about 1/4 of a turn. If it takes more than 1/4 of a turn, that's too far. So, but what we've done is we pivoted that third axis and then locked it back together here so it's not going to come loose on you.
Cool.
So let's try that one more time. So remember to start level at the wall. Okay. Get nice and level. Make sure that bubble there, and then angle up. Go ahead and angle up.
That's level with the rope.
How's that bubble in the scope?
Can't see the bubble, it's behind the
Okay,
table.
it's perfect. So it looks good right in the middle there.
All right, guys, that's it for part number 2 of how to build a bow. Thanks to Jeremiah and the guys at Wilde Arrow.
Anytime.
Any final thoughts?
So yeah, just you know, if you guys have any questions, feel free to give us a call or come on down to the shop, and you know, we can get you set up with a sweet rig just like Eric's here and get you all dialed into, get ready to go bow hunt. So
Yeah, if you guys are interested in the custom Wilde Arrow black gold ascent, give these guys a call. They'll help you out. But it's time to sight this thing in.